he went to China in 1969. He told me that story. And how in China, if you want to do a magazine, you have, or a media business, you have to have a local partner, like in all businesses. So almost all American companies, almost all, I can't say all, the big ones, were using his license and showing him as a JV. He was the exchange for media of information technology in the world, IDG. I don't have to tell you, they started as a tech publishing company, became a tech research company. Then he made enough money to be able to start a venture capital firm. So he's an early, 15 years back, private equity was new in India. Then that became Walden, a new fund called Walden. Yeah. Walden, I was there in 1998. You were in Walden in 98, then you went to IDG, and now Chirate. And I want to start by asking you, first of all, this week Policybazaar got a successful IPO. How does it feel? And give us a little bit about the Policybazaar journey, whatever. It's a listed entity, so I know that you will need to be measured and balanced when you talk about it. But give us a sense when he came to invest with you, what did you see in it? And at one point of time, it was looking like ventures like Policybazaar are doing well, but they're guzzling in money, you know. They're subsidizing the policies, they're selling, and it seemed like an unprofitable model. But the validation from investors in this market is huge because it is early years for a insurance tech or a fintech. It is a fintech business, insurance tech business. It's earlier. So give us a sense of when you met Yashish and how did that happen?
It happened many times before so we were not the first investors. We came in a bit later. And again, Yashish and his co-founders, amazing entrepreneurs, they thought of digital distribution of insurance far ahead of the others. I think that was the first element. So typically when we look at companies, we look at a few, apart from stellar entrepreneurs, we look at a few innovations which are very, very important. Technology, product, new markets being created, new business models and new revenue models. What we saw in Policybazaar was not all these elements in our situation, we saw them in and situation. And that was a turning point because it was creating a new business, new markets, everything was new about it. And that's what appeals to risk investors, VCs like us, because those kind of businesses are difficult to create. Yes, they do lose money in the beginning, but ultimately,
they're creating that industry.
They're creating that industry.
Pioneers, burden.
Yeah, they're pioneers. They're creating an industry. A company needs capital to grow. That capital can come from customers, and in the absence of enough customers in the beginning, it comes from risk investors like us. Until customers are enough, where that money is not required. It's a very simple equation, right? So I think. And that proof of the pudding lies in absolutely stellar entrepreneurs. And if I see commonality.
How do you spot that? How do you know that this entrepreneur will do well? Of course, the past track record is some indicator, but it's not necessarily an indicator of whether they'll do well at a new domain, so on and so forth.
I think we don't. So one has to be very straightforward on this. It's meeting as many in a year. Me and my firm, we meet about 3,000 entrepreneurs. And
in a year?
In a year.
And you end up investing in 30?
We end up investing in 15 to 20.
15 to 20.
And this...
You meet 3,000, you end up investing in 15 to 20.
So there are...
So you're in the rejection business?
No, we're not.
Are you in the selection business?
No, so see, these media guys are very dangerous to handle.
I'm not a media.
But fundamentally, we're in the business of spotting talent because when we invest in seed and early stage, there is a person, a guy or a girl sitting in front of us.
Sudhir Sethi says venture capitalists are talent management agencies. No, I'm kidding.
So we are basically conversing. We are learning. So please understand, the entrepreneur knows more than us because the entrepreneur has already thought about the business. The entrepreneur has thought about which market to disrupt. The entrepreneur has thought about the product, the customer, the consumer. So we are learning from the entrepreneur and saying, should we back him or not? And that is a very interesting journey. There is no business school who teaches you that. It has to be learned by meeting entrepreneurs. In my first year of investing in 98 when I started, in the first year I met 279 entrepreneurs, right? Personally. And, I was the only guy.
That's
in the
almost
front.
one a day, almost.
Yeah, almost one a day, one working day, right? But today, the amount of traction which is there is, you can imagine how many times more. And that is where the learning happens. The entrepreneur, what is the entrepreneur doing? The entrepreneur is solving a challenge in the market which has not been solved before. And in our case, by using technology. That's the disruptor. So I'll give you a very simple example and I'll stop after this. When we talk about, hey, health tech, what do you mean by health tech? To us, health tech is about 1 billion people in India who need and must get very efficient world-class healthcare services. It's a definition. And that can be provided in 5 or 6 elements. First is prevention. Second is the whole area of diagnostics. The third is the whole space of therapy. Fourth is rehab, and fifth is medicine. So we divided into this. And then you go into oral, you get into cancer, you get into
Preventive.
etc. But please understand, if cancer is identified when a person visits a dentist, right, it is possible to ensure that the first stage of cancer does not hit. Why? Because what happens inside, if a person is eating pan, so it's a lifestyle issue, right? So it's very important that this to us be followed. And we've followed this and saying our mission is to make sure that India gets enough entrepreneurs who are disrupting the market, because you can't build enough hospitals. You can't have enough nurses. You can't have enough clinics. It's not possible in the next 70 years. If it was possible, it would have happened in the last 70 years. Technology enables a consumer to do the needful. So one of our companies called Smiles enables through digital photography, what's wrong in your mouth, right? Healthify Me has enabled customers to reduce 12.5 million kilograms of weight. Okay, and the list goes on and on.
Fantastic. So clearly you're saying that you make bets by investing time with entrepreneurs, understanding their vision, and then using some kind of your own background, your own gut feel, looking at their numbers. And you primarily bet on people, invest in people. Right?
In the early stage, yes. Then once the company goes to A round or B round, that's there. Some of these things are starting to get baked. Then you can talk to customers. My first investment in 2007 was in a company called Manthan, where he had only sold 2 products in retail analytics, which was to Haagen-Dazs. And I went to California. I went to Seattle and sat down with them for 2 days, understanding how do they use the product. And in those 2 days, I learned that the customer takes the advice from Manthan on how to build analytics. That was good enough for me to go and invest in the company.
And look at the Manthan story.
And Manthan it's a different story altogether right now. So I think it's partially science and partially art. But I can tell you one thing, it's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is. Now let me ask you the non-fun part of it. There are 2 questions and I'll clearly demarcate them. One, within your industry, there is enough capital available. So entrepreneurs also have a choice, the good ones definitely, the big ones. What differentiates you, when I say you, I mean Chirate, when you talk to them, like your exit from the gaming company now, look at the multiples, clearly that helps you raise capital. I mean, your track record was proven before that, but that's a nice feather to add.
Yeah.
That was what, for 27 times return?
53.
53 times return, right? You sold it to the Swedish company, Swiss company or Swedish company? Swedish company. Now tell us how, while entrepreneurs choose you choose entrepreneurs. Sometimes there is a situation when entrepreneurs have a choice. How do you woo them when they have a choice?
So I think so my motto is very simple. I keep talking to our team that, look, we are there on the board of companies because we have capital. It's from day one, our job is to prove that we are being worthy of that partnership with the entrepreneur
Beyond capital.
beyond capital, right? Capital is important because that's the only way you can build a company. But value add is very, very crucial.
Give us an example.
So our goal has been and continues to be the trusted partner for an entrepreneur. And I must say, you asked, how do we do it better than others? We are not in a race here, right? We are also learning in the market space. We do it the way we think is right. First and foremost, what's good for the company is good for us, right? We will not go into the market space and say, hey, I need to get that 1x extra return. And by the way, the entrepreneur suffers. Answer is no. We have to be fair. We are, as investors, we have to add value. We have to be there for the long term. Entrepreneurs will go through ups and downs. That is the nature of the business. That nature of the business is so crucial for us as investors to understand. We are also leverage people. The entrepreneur knows what he's doing. We have not to cross that line because we're not running the company, right? But by meeting 3,000 companies in a year, and by meeting so many investors, and by meeting people here in the audience, we learn and we say, okay, you know what? I think this guy can help you. So there's a network effect which VCs form, which is absolutely crucial. But last but not the least, we're not in the business of money. We're in the business of trust, relationships. We're in the business of ensuring in any way possible from our side that entrepreneur becomes successful. By the way, of course we have to make money because that's the reason why investors are there. But it's not putting the cart before the horse. It's absolutely crucial.
Now, let me ask you the second question. I know it's a fund, you raised it for principals. I understand the structure of a fund. There's a management fee, there's an upside. Aren't you tempted to personally invest in some of the companies now that you're in a position? And how do you deal with that?
We took that decision when we started the fund in 2006, that some basic governance rules will be followed. And that is, if we have to put money, whatever we have, we'll put through the fund and not separately. Not a single company we put separately.
So there's complete alignment and
Absolutely. There's complete alignment. There is complete disclosure. There is complete alignment with the entrepreneur and with the investor. There is no question about it. No cherry picking.
Understood. So that solves it. But now that you've got exits and I'm sure there's an upside, and don't you think of starting a Sudhir Sethi fund? I mean, Chirate is a Sudhir Sethi fund. There's no question.
So
but your own capital.
So Chirate is not a Sudhir Sethi fund.
I know.
We're a team of people.
Yes, I know Karan. And I mean, yeah, but you're the leader. You're the person, the pivot.
So our goal is to continue to create an institution which has never been created before in India. That's an Indian VC firm which will go global at some time. And we will be down the line in multiple asset classes, which are in VC, which are in late stage tech and so on and so forth. So has an Indian firm of this scale been created? No.
Yeah, in fact, I was talking to Sudhir 3 months back, and then we did an interview for vc-world.in. It's our venture capital site, not yet formally launched, but 60% traffic of the already existing player who's been around for 12 years. And we launched it formally in Feb, but we interviewed him for that, put it in the magazine, and he basically talked about what he's saying, that we're truly homegrown in the way our quality of capital, our source of capital, our leaders, our professionals, and we really compete with the best in the business who are global. So we're truly an Indian firm that will go global at some stage. You mentioned that.
So our companies are going global. 40% of our companies have a global footprint. There's no reason why, if we have to support them, we have to go global. So let's be clear. If we don't go global, we can't support our companies. So yes, that's our mission. That's our vision. And hopefully we'll create that.
Now, this is a forum for young founders. They're all less than 35. You saw them on a Zoom call and grateful for your time and the amount of energy and personal involvement. And you changed my views on some people because you're an investor. I'm not. I do that as a side job in a very small way, right? I'm an angel investor. And in some people, you change my perspective and I'm happy to go with yours. Anyway, Decision was always yours. What is your advice to these young founders? Because some of them are in early stages, they're raising capital. What is your advice to them in terms of raising capital and scaling up?
Follow your dreams. You believe in something. That's absolutely crucial. On the way, you'll meet a lot of well-wishers, lot of advisors, lot of investors. If they're saying no, uh, find out why. But there'll be that one or two people who'll say yes, but follow your dreams. It's so important. I mean, I've seen, entrepreneurs who fundamentally believed in what they were doing, and the ecosystem they had to convince. And that to me is absolute gold.
There's been a lot of talk about valuations. Of course, you're an investor. When you're investing, you like a low valuation. When you're exiting, clearly you like a high valuation. That's okay. If I'm selling a house, I would want the best price. If I'm buying, want the lowest price, right? What is your view, without asking a specific comment on a Nykaa, on a Paytm? Of course, definitely not. What is your view on valuations? Because there is yesterday's debut of Paytm on the stock exchanges met with a certain, and course correction will happen. But there is a view. I mean, of course, Mr. Junjunwala has let his views known very publicly. Even startup founders like Nikhil Kamath and Nitin Kamath of Zerodha, and I can give you at least 5 names who have said that this was bound to happen and there'll be more mayhem because this is not the real value. And again, the counter offer to that is Amazon got listed 20 years back and everybody said, at this valuation, Amazon, and look at where is Amazon. So clearly Amazon was right. So what is your view? I want a candid view from you.
Yeah. Valuation, whether it is private or public, is a valuation, is a number at a point of time. However, companies are going through journeys. They will go through ups and downs, right? So to that extent, the way I look at valuations is it's a journey, especially in listed markets overall. So yeah, and by the way, valuations are to be discovered. And the more people in the market are discovering it, the reality becomes bigger. In private markets, the valuations are discovered by a few people and it's reasonably opaque. In public markets, it's not opaque.
So can I give you my view? I mean, I'm not an expert in private equity venture capital, but I read, I meet people like you. In a private market, the investors are much more nuanced. They have holding power and they know how to navigate their investment by bringing an investor at 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times, whatever. Whereas when we're talking of public market, we're talking of retail investor who may not be that nuanced, who may be.
There may be a FOMO there.
There is a FOMO there.
Yeah.
Clearly, you said it. I mean, so give us your view. I mean,
so
I'm not clearly there is value. I'm not doubting.
Yeah.
And who am I? The market has given them the money, and who knows what will happen.
Yeah. So I think there is a FOMO in retail. There's no question. Retail is a small part of the total public markets overall. There are nuanced investors who, on disclosed data, will take a view, which is the right thing to do in public markets. They are very experienced investors. They're very experienced investors overall. So, if your question is, in particular cases, they've taken a good view or a not so good view, I think they've taken a call, and they will go and stay there. Please understand. If I look at some companies in the stock markets in the brick and mortar side, right? They are going through yo-yos today. They are going through your Asian Paints. Steady, rock solid.
Asian Paints, we are doing a story. It's a different issue.
So I'm saying
it's about the main promoter who ran the company is not longer on the company. His brother is running, who's interested in selling the company. I have a nuanced view on that because I've done a lot of research last 2 weeks.
So what I'm saying is, every company, there are investors who will take a call based on published information, right? And they will take a call. So the discovery period, the discovery is by a large number of investors as far as public markets are concerned. In private markets, it's a smaller number of investors.
As you know, in Asian Paints, 24 years back, also there was an effort to sell the company. You know that. You must have started 97. And I promise you, our chief guest is capable enough to talk about just this and any company because he was the chairman of the Bombay Stock Exchange. Mr. Sethuratnam Ravi will just join us. But I think Asian Paints is different. I have a nuanced view because last 2 weeks I've been doing a lot of research on the story and my editorial team. So I think there it's about a certain individual who's part of management is no longer part of management. And there is a new one. That's my.
Okay. So I mentioned Asian Paint because.
Yeah, because it's a company that gave returns over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Dividends, outstanding returns.
Outstanding returns. So technology-based stocks, to my mind, I think the Indian market space is still understanding, and it'll take some more time to understand. I must mention in the private markets, because I'm not a public market chap, in the private markets, there is a lot of capital now. In the private market, there is a lot of capital. Valuations are driven by discovery. Valuations are also
Scarcity
driven
premium.
by how many good companies are there in the
Scarcity
market.
premium.
Okay, there will be a scarcity premium. There will be good companies. Some of them are making losses. Ultimately, good companies will have to survive without additional private equity capital or additional public market capital. Ultimately, the shorter the time frame, the better it is. There's no question about it, right? Amazon, it took some time because it was
But-
investing globally.
Yeah, and it had a clear P2P, as we say, path to profitability, which in some cases is not visible.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not there. I don't know their plan, so I can't say it's not there. But it's not visible clearly.
So if you look at the private markets, late stage capital is actually a lot today. And that late stage capital, because there's a lot of capital, the number of companies are still less. So to that extent, there'll be some froth there. However, please understand one thing. I value the company. All the private equity guys are doing enormous diligence before they come into companies. Enormous, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no question about it. Because there is a large pool of capital, is there a push to invest more? Possibly, yes. Is that a right thing to do? At least in some of our companies, we've seen availability of capital forces us as the early stage investors and the entrepreneur to think parallelization of strategy and execution, which was perhaps sequential earlier, right? Many of our companies have gone global. Lenskart is global. FirstCry is global. Small companies like Emotix, which is a product called Miko, is global. They are going global.
SoftBank is also invested in Lenskart.
Yes, they are. So
Manoj was talking about Lenskart
in the morning, right? So when pools of capital are available, then you go back to your drawing board and say, can I do something with this because I can grow faster? And today's entrepreneur is doing that. That is a very big change in the last 3 years.
Now, let me ask you another aspect of investing, which is co-investing. As someone famously said last week, the problem with valuation in private equity is they are a chubby club. They invest together, they exit together, they determine and fix their valuations. Give us your commentary on this comment.
So if you mean co-investment the way I mean it, co-investments are done by investors who come along with funds.
Sure.
That's a very large market because there is excess capital available with LPs, with investors. But co-investors come in where third-party valuation is taking place. When third-party valuation takes place, co-investors come in. Co-investors normally come in at that level, which is perfectly fine. There is a diligence there. Everything is fine there. I don't think there's an issue there. Co-investment pool is actually expanding the base of capital. I think the bigger issue is not international here. The bigger issue is Indian capital available in the private equity and VC market? We have seen that 50% of our fund is Indian capital today. And that to me is a very big change from as recent as 3 years back.
Because they've thought, and rightly, they missed the bus in the last 3-4 years.
Well,
so they're trying to catch up.
I won't say they're trying to catch up. I think the familiarity with the asset class is becoming higher.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it.
And that's a very important thing because risk asset class allocations to family offices, which is the largest pool, it's more than $1 trillion to my mind here right now. So their ability to manage and to learn and to invest is steadily increasing. I mean, in our second fund, 20% of our capital was from India. In a third fund, it became 40%. In a fourth fund, it became 50%.
So India has a lot of...
So India has a large pool of capital. And I must say that and I'm saying family offices because that's a pool which is much, much ahead of institutions in India. Institutions are not investing as large as family offices, which we have seen. But the family office also has one more asset for us, which is they are industrialists who have grown businesses in India. That is very valuable to the entrepreneur and is very valuable to us.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I want to tell you a real slice. I don't think I'll take names, but I'll allude to the names. I was sitting with a guy who's in the fintech space and he's going to do his IPO in Feb. And he said, look at Paytm. And he's been talking to me for 3 months about Paytm. And then he's one of his investment is in the travel tech space. And then he started to talk about Gautam Adani's buying Clear Trip uh, from Flipkart. And I said, why would they buy that? It's not a good asset. If it was a good asset, Walmart won't sell it. The margins, of course, it was an entry strategy. Maybe they'll do much more with Flipkart after that. Maybe they may take over Flipkart. Gautam Adani clearly can. Who knows? Because they want to for a long. Now they may have changed their mind, but they wanted to exit the investment after investing at a discount. You know that. I know that, right? So with the Tatas jumping into the fray, Tatas are buying all digital assets. I mean, you look at their acquisition in the last 6 months. Adani is now jumping in the fray. How has it changed? Of course, it is bringing capital to your fund, but they've started to directly pitch themselves to companies and acquire companies. So they're frenemies. They're investing your fund,
No.
but they're directly pitching. And
I think it's very good for the ecosystem. I think India needs large. So let's take a 5-year time frame. The biggest ecosystem players became Amazon and Flipkart. There was nobody. Then Reliance came along. Then Tata's came along. I'm sure there'll be another 3 or 4 large players coming in. I think India needs that. This is also a change in the industry, the brick and mortar industry wanting to come in the new economy industry. This is a massive change, which I think will happen in small ways with many industries and big ways. Okay, with many industries.
excuse me, can you shut up at the back of the? You've been chatting for last 20 minutes. The colleagues from the hotel. Yes.
So this is a way where, and I'm very happy about it, where large and small industries are now thinking how to build new economy companies. The transformation is absolutely brilliant. And I'm very happy about it because this adds to the impetus. A startup may want to sell to one of these groups. And please understand, the Indian groups will buy faster than the international groups. Be
And
clear of that.
and why?
And the
Because they
reason
know
is
India well, they're able
they
to
know
do
India well.
due diligence faster.
They do
There's a
due
single
diligence
decision
faster.
maker in most cases.
And most of the cases, the decision is in India, not outside.
Yes. Single decision
very
maker
important,
in India.
right? Now, startups will have a different strategy, and I read in the papers, and so do Reliance have a different strategy. But look at the ecosystem they're building up. It is an amazing ecosystem which really pumps up the new economy companies. Now, will it form an exit for some of us? Yes. Is it an additional pool of capital for some of our companies? The answer
Yes.
is a very big yes, right? Is it an additional pool for some VCs and PE guys? Answer is
So
yes.
it's a welcome development.
It's a very welcome development. I also believe that smaller industries are also joining here, right? The corporate venture arm of the corporate arms of many of the top, let's say, FMCG companies are already foraying into this.
Yeah, they want to be early stage investors in strategic.
Yeah, some of
place.
the IT services companies are looking at this very seriously. So to my mind, this is just the beginning, right? And it's a welcome step. I think more should happen, and I wish more will happen.
My last professional question, then one personal question, and rest of the time we'll take questions from the Mr. Salil Kapoor. Does a fair amount of angel investing for the last 7 years. He was he was a COO at Voltas, the CEO of Dish TV, Hook Television, and now he's the business head at Orient Electric. So he's done fair bit of angel investing. I am aware. Mr. Dilip Venkatraman used to be Group CEO of CNN IBN, and I would say a big strategy guy, thinks very coherently, turned an entrepreneur, still has the company, but because for various reasons went to a job in, he's the global head of media entertainment, but the company still stays. And Mr. Ved Shukla is here, Subi is here. These are people I know and a lot of young entrepreneurs, so I let them ask. My last professional question. We know the obvious sectors. Wherever there is a tech play, whether it's insurance tech, health tech, retail tech, kirana tech, we know blockchain, we know what is happening with crypto. Again, crypto can be a whole day conference on what is right and what is wrong and what to be cautious about. But tell us some of the obvious sectors that we are missing. Of course, FMCG products, the D2C revolution. During the jury meet, you mentioned to me, we looked at candidates, individuals who build third-party brands, right?
So
And
I think, yeah.
so tell us sectors that we are still not cognizant about, we don't talk about. They're still emerging.
I think health is still emerging. It is encapsulated into one word called health tech. But if you look at the kind of companies which are happening, there is no data in the country which says that hypothetically water quality in a particular area is linked to some disease. There's no data. So it is important for that to happen in a country like India. I think health will emerge as very large in the country, because there's still a billion people who need healthcare services. The second area which I believe is very, very important is D2C, and there is a third area. The D2C brand, and thank you for inviting me to the jury, because I was amazed. We saw in effectively 2 days and few extensions, 71 companies. And I was amazed. That was a discovery for me, because it was just amazing what these guys were doing. I saw Noise here. I saw some of the other companies here. Now, those will happen more and more. Okay. And I think the aggregation play, which is being done by companies like Global Bees and Mensa, are a play which is the house of brands emerging more and more. That I think will happen. The third area is very important, because a large part of the country depends on it. There is very little right now investments in agri-tech. So I'll give you.
Especially what the Prime Minister done today. Again, that changes it in some way.
It changes in a big way, actually. That gives you the air cover, right?
By the way, in this hotel on 26, we have our Festival of Well-being. We have Luke Coutinho, we have Gopal Das, and we were worried because there was a farmers' agitation.
We just stopped.
So I thought somebody from our office called the Prime Minister and requested him to do this. I haven't figured out who called, but maybe we'll figure
So
out.
agri, and I'll give you a very interesting example. It's one of our companies. I'm familiar with it. So there's a company called Cropin.
Called
Cropin.
Crop In.
I'll mention two companies. Cropin is through satellite imagery today monitoring 15 million acres of land. What does it do? It monitors soil quality, water quality, crop disease, etc., etc., and aggregates the data. And that data is given to input providers like seed, etc., on a SaaS model. Okay. Now, this facility of your crop is going to wither 4 weeks from now, right, is available to the farmer free of cost. So there's a revenue model which is very different. Now, they want to go to 300 million acres in India and outside the country. It's a massive company in the formation. So technology can solve the challenge of a farmer whose income on an average holding of 2 acres, I think 2.5 acres in the country, right? Income levels will be 1.5 lakhs per year, right? It is not enough to sustain. So how do you increase the income of a farmer where on a 2 acre, 2.5 acre average plot size, there is no capital investment possible by that person, period. You can do all sorts of juggling. So the only way is to improve productivity, right? Because that is what Cropin is doing. Massive. The impact is increase in income per year. Okay. If you look at grain losses in storage, so we have a company called Ergos, who's built a technology
How
platform.
do you spell that?
ERGOS.
Ergos.
So we found that, look, it's a known factor, but we discovered that when we met the entrepreneur, that grain losses are huge.
Yeah, the
It's
tons
pathetic.
and millions of tons.
Right.
40% of our grain get wasted, lying in go downs and not reaching.
So how do you do that? So he's built a technology platform where the farmer can come and store, and I won't go into the detail, but grain losses are down by half. Okay. So there are many such companies in the country who are doing enormously good work in the agrotech space, but it is to be, I think investors like us are actually getting into that now and learning about it, because the impact is on 100+ million families in the country, which is 500 million people, right? And we're not
40% of our population.
Right. We are not impact investors, right? But when a farmer comes to Ergos, he says, store my grain. In the old system, the farmer had to sell some grain because he needs to fund his next sowing season. Today, he doesn't, because he gets a loan.
Yeah, he gets a storage, he gets a
He
loan.
storage.
So he doesn't have to sell at a lower price.
So, yeah. And then discovery of the price, he can wait for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Typically, when there's a marriage in the house of a farmer, he has to sell. Today, he doesn't.
That's how, even when there is a media owner, if there is a marriage, the advertising rates go up. Right. Wade used to work for Hindustan Times, so he knows that.
So I
Right.
think agri is one more area which is very, very important. And pieces in fintech. Fintech, the financial infrastructure of the company. You'll hear a lot about fintech, but the financial infrastructure of the country is inefficient, right? It takes long time for a lender. So you have a company called Vyana doing about $2.5 billion worth of lending per year right now.
What's it called?
Vyana. Okay.
How do you spell that?
Vyana.
VYAN.
$2.5 billion worth of lending with NPS being zero, right? So please understand, technology can solve enormous amount of problems in the country. And I'm not talking out of the impact investor. So you merge impact, you merge technology, and you merge absolutely outstanding financial returns to investors. That's what the VC business is all about.
Thank you so much. My last and a personal question. Sudhir, you've really done well, especially the last 10 years. Look at the returns of your companies, look at the quality of investing, look at the breadth, look at what people say about Chirate. Your team has been around with you for a long time. I know Karan well and other people in your team. What next for Sudhir Sethi? Is there a bucket list? Padma Shri? Now that Sanjeev Bakchandani has got it.
No, nothing of the sort. I think we are very passionate.
Me and Sanjeev are similar age time. So I'm hoping I get it next year.
No.
Dilip, you also have a chance.
So very simple. We are very passionate about building the firm and growing it. And we will continue to do that.
That is a given.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. That's a given. But what else?
That's it.
No other bucket list.
No.
Or you're not sharing it with us?
No, there's no bucket list. I love reading. I love reading comic books. I love microfarming. I love wildlife photography. I collect old locks. So yeah, those are my.
You collect old locks?
Yeah, those are my bucket list on the left hand side.
What do you do with old locks? Sometimes you get upset with the investing company, throw it in, right? Now, which one bigger, smaller, choose and like this quarter you did not read.
You want to discover the culture of India history? Go to locks.
Okay, good. Please give Sudhir Sethi a big round of applause. I have enjoyed this conversation. We'll get the mic around the house, so please be ready.
Anurag, thank you for the energy and the conversation. Of course, we're not lacking for it. Sudhir, it is so heartwarming and so inspiring to listen to you. I wish I could be a fly on the wall when you're making those decisions. And that's where part of the conversation comes from. Larry Fink from BlackRock reaches out almost every year and is asking for more accountability. He's asking for your ESG reports and he's asking for sustainability track records. We just did a panel and you named two wonderful investee companies. Out of those 3,000, what is it that clinches it for you? Is it a very sound business model? Is it the vision of the founder, or are you also consciously putting in social impact in the middle of the conversation? And the other thing that you briefly alluded to, right? Technology versus the business case. I think they're both interlinked. I'd love to hear a little more about that. And thank you so much for sharing. Sure. Truly delighted.
One about ESG. I mean, is it for real? Indian funds, I'm not talking, have raised close to $12 billion in last 10 months. Just ESG compliant funds. And this is a tip of the iceberg. We at Business World, the only business media platform, not CNBC, not ET, not anybody else, rank India's most sustainable companies are BW 500. And we partner Sustain Labs, Paris Minya Chatterjee, who's the best in that business. And this is the second year, and I can tell you that that's an area we take very seriously. I hired a sustainability editor 6 years back, Dr. Neeta Mishra. She had to go back to Washington, Ivy League credentials. So ESG is, give us trends. And second, she asked you about really the way forward. What are the changes happening in the investing landscape in the next 12 to 18 months?
So, just to answer your question on ESG, we went on this journey of discovering how we are making an impact about 3.5 years back. It was driven by one of our investors. And the investor said, so you're making money? Sure. And I must say 3.5, 4 years back, we sat in Washington and we created a spreadsheet. Because by that time we were thinking about it, but we were not thinking about it. You understand what I'm saying, right? And we found that there were so many farmers who were using our product. We found there were At that time, possibly 45 million consumers who were dependent on our companies for timely delivery of products, timely delivery of the right quality at the right price, predictable delivery, etc., etc. And the list goes on. So we found that there were 2 million people who we were delivering healthcare services to. So forget the ESG as a framework. It motivated us. The first framework was one single spreadsheet, right? It was historical. It was a discovery backwards. Today, if you go to our website, we have taken out a second impact report, how it is impacting society around us, how it is impacting business around us. We are impacting today more than 200,000 SMEs. In our companies, we are impacting 60 million consumers. We are impacting millions of farmers today, 2 million to be precise, in the market space. We are in more than 100 towns in the country. 37% of our consumers are female. Only 14% of our employees and founders are female, right? But when we look at consumers, the average selling price. So there is a financial element to it, which is important to understand, right? And is not being ruthless. The ASP of female buyers is bigger than the male buyers in some of our cases, right? So I think there is a business case there to adopt this. Secondly, the quality of people who we were hiring suddenly increased, right? Because there was a motivation which was far, far different. So there was a purpose and there was a profit purpose. There was a purpose other than that. So we release our impact reports. We look through it every quarter. We go to our companies. When decision making is done, we don't insist, by the way. Why? Because a seed company has a paper plan and it started 2 years back. So you can't insist, but you discuss it. We fund companies broadly who are solving a real business or a society challenge in the market space. You look at our companies. They're solving, using technology, a real challenge which has not been solved before, but can only be solved by technology. That's the core of our philosophy. And that to me is working very nicely.
Entire ecosystem of startup ecosystem and investing ecosystem has evolved over a period of time. So you have all the players now. You have the founders, the startups, the pre-seed investors, and now till somebody who takes you to a street, that is, get you public. Then a lot of those who are and mentors and a lot of those who sell spades to the gold diggers. House of brands is a phenomena which has really picked up momentum globally now. What else is missing? What is the new layer that can be built on top of all that already exists? What is that part of ecosystem which will take shape in future, or there are early signs of it already there?
Only one. The participation of Indian capital in the ecosystem. So let me please have a seat. Let me go back. In the last 6 years, the amount of capital which has been invested by private equity and VCs in the country has crossed $200 billion. It is my belief that in the next 6 years, this will be approximately $500 billion.
$500 billion.
$500 billion. Okay. Now, if you look at history, the Indian capital participation is less than 5%. There's a host of reasons. I think if certain steps are not taken, and I'll come to what those steps are, the participation at best will grow to 10% in the next 6 years. What are those certain steps? There is a tax disparity. Indian investors pay higher tax on private capital invested in companies which go inside a company, not like public markets roam around outside the company. That is absolutely crucial. That parity has to happen. You will find more capital coming in. Okay. That to me, and there are other things like ESOP and so on and so forth, but this is crucial. I believe that in the next 6 years, if some steps are taken like this, the participation of Indian capital will go to about 25%. Please understand, China is 60%, right? So 25% will mean on $500 billion, you know the maths. That is absolutely crucial because this capital which comes in is knowledgeable capital. It is financial. It is, I mean, you've got institutions coming in, you've got family offices coming in. So to me, that's a game changer in the country.
See, where is the place for a play for a retail investor in the entire startup ecosystem? When the retail investor comes, it's usually at the end of the musical chairs when it's going public.
Explain the musical chair phenomena.
No, so I don't need to, but
sir,
yeah,
who's,
but
you know,
but is
price-
there a way you see in future that retail investor will come much earlier in the value chain? Is there a play for something like SPAC in India? Do you think that is the way, or will something else?
Is it a
evolve?
play for what?
SPACs?
Okay, SPACs is not about retail investors. So number one, I think VC and private equity is a high risk.
High reward.
Uh,
High reward. You
I
can
would-
say that.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it is did.
I will just say high risk first. Okay. It's very important. And I don't think retail investors should participate in this high risk because there is very limited knowledge about the company. There's no company there. I mean, when we do seed investing, what do? We look at the founder, we meet the founder for 3 months. There's a business plan. Part of that has not been met, right? Our loss ratios are pretty high. So how do we manage that? There's a product construct. There is a loss construct. There is a strategy which is written in our documents, right? Please understand, retail investors do not invest in asset classes like this. So today, I would not take money from a retail investor because it is not possible. This is an illiquid asset. You will not get money for 6 years back. Retail investors want it when they want it back, which is why public markets are better for them.
The liquidity part.
So it's an illiquid
The
asset. It's
appetite.
a high risk asset, right? Allocations are difficult to make by retail investors because the knowledge is not there. So we've also told the government in many cases, don't invite retail investors here. This is not their game.
Broadly, I mean, from an outside view, it looks like the cost of capital in India is higher, or is it correct to assume it is higher in India as against money which is coming in from elsewhere? And if that is the case, as your capital base increasingly shifts towards Indian investors, you might have to pay higher returns to them to kind of manage the cost of capital. Hence, for an entrepreneur, is it going to add to the pressure of giving a higher return, or is it just going to be, business as usual? Should one take money from an Indian VC versus money from a VC whose money is coming from outside of India?
Number one, when we invest in companies, we don't talk to entrepreneurs about how much should the return be. That's not the first question and the last question. That's an internal matter. And entrepreneurs should be and will be always focused on building the company. It's very clear. Second, as far as capital pools are concerned, there are neutralizations which are very important. For instance, the risk international capital carries is one of the risks is Forex, whereas Indian capital does not. So there are many equalizations. So I don't think it's as simple as that, but ultimately both will want returns which are higher. So to us, the biggest question always will we be able to give on a sustained manner year after year after year, returns which are higher than public markets? And if the answer is yes, there is no problem. So Indian investors in VC private equity will compare it with Indian bourses, international with international bourses. That's one of the benchmarks. And successful VCs have always given better returns on a sustainable basis over the medium to long term, better than public markets.
My question is, with the SME IPOs and startup IPOs market also heating up, would your company or would the VC world look at a company which raised seed funds by an IPO any different than a company which is going the normal route?
So we, as an example, do not invest in public market companies because we don't understand the public market overall. We invest in only unlisted companies. There are funds who invest in public market companies where they understand the public markets. So there are different kinds of funds. So if you're raising capital, then you have to go to those funds and say, hey, why would you invest in such ours company?
Okay. Question here from the gentleman here.
By the way, you're in a very sweet spot. It's a very good spot, especially in packaging, sustainable packaging. It's a huge need in India.
Yes, sir.
Right now, people like Mukesh Bansal, Anand Mahindra investing lots of money in a space tech startup like Agnikul Corp, Skyroot Aerospace, Pixels. So what's your take
This is
on
billionaires' hobbies,
Transportation, space transportation, aerospace are long-term assets. overall. Will they receive capital in the country in due course of time? Yes. I think Space Tech had, before this new policy came, where, the investments had to be approved and ISRO was, one of the issues. I think policies will emerge now. Drone policy has come out. That's like, let's call it lower height space for a minute. India will excel in space, in my view. There is no question about it. The amount of work which is being done in all the government agencies, and now we've seen so many private companies, startups doing work in that. I think there are some regulatory issues which need to be taken care of. But yes, it's a long-term asset class. It needs enormous amount of capital, which is not available right now in the country. But will it be available down the line? Possibly. Because I think a government fund here would be much, much better, because this takes 10 years to mature. It takes 8 to 10 years. It's not, a 5 to 6 to 7 year average holding period.
So my question to you is that we see a lot of great startups who have become $1 trillion or $1 billion, multi-billion dollar companies like Facebook, Google. So all of those companies started when those sectors were very niche and they were not any other, like, it's not another e-commerce company which is today.
They were the pioneers. They were
They were
first.
pioneers, exactly.
Yeah, so to say.
So why the investment side of India, why investors are not looking forward to the startups which are pioneers in the sector, and they are very looking for very.
That's not true. You've
sectors.
not gone to the right investors.
So I think the areas which are innovative, on a scale of 10, I would say very innovative, never seen anywhere in the world. I would say India is at 4 right now. There are many, many such companies who are actually going global. Happy to chat who they are offline.
Please give Mr. Sudhir Sethi a big round of applause.
Thank you.
We started at 10:20 a.m. We've been going whole day, but this was definitely a conversation that was authentic, real, and coming from a domain expert. One more round of applause for him. You get an extra beer. Thank you so much.